TNT and Legos. We're living life over here.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_Beeble and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today we are looking back at 4 games in the NBA on Thursday, but tons of big news as well. Injuries galore up in Toronto, a bad injury for the Brooklyn Nets as well for us to talk about. So we're going to cover all of that stuff off on today's show and then preview 10 games in the NBA for Friday. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it indeed. The first game we look at is for Thursday. We'll go through all the games, and then we'll look at the injury stuff as well after that. The first game we look at is the Utah Jazz getting the victory over the Atlanta Hawks. Of course, Mike Conley was out of this one, so Jingling Joe Ingles got another start, 14-7-5 with 2 steals and 2 threes. He is a must-roster player with Conley out, and I think that it will remain that way because they did decide to make that change to keep Ingles starting and O'Neal off the bench that half a game that Conley played. So he performs much better in that starting lineup. So you go and add Ingles. Royce O'Neal provided the defense, 3 steals and a block. That's solid enough. While Conley's out, there's a maybe 14-team league value there. While the Donovan Mitchell
is good.
30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. For fantasy purposes, he's much better as a point guard. In the past, that hasn't really worked for the Jazz. But with how Conley's playing this season, him having the ball in his hands actually works a little bit better for them. So that'll be interesting to see how they go through that. While Bojan Bogdanovic had 19 points on some poor shooting, his shooting percentages can be really wild in terms of the consistency there. While Gobert, 20 and 13. Now, the free throws were a disaster. 10 of 19, because those 19 free throw attempts is what really sinks you, but still 3 blocks, and overall, the line is really strong. As for the Hawks, they made a change to their starting lineup, and I think what this sets up is for them to start John Collins at center when he returns. They moved Damian Jones out of the starting lineup and out of the rotation entirely, with Bruno Fernando starting. They moved Jabari Parker to the bench and started Cam Reddish. So I think that the starting lineup was Trae Young, Vanderpants Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, and Bruno Fernando. And I think we'll just get a straight inclusion of Collins in for Fernando and leave Parker in that bench role and start that Reddish, Huerter, Hunter combination. So that is some interesting stuff there. Now, Parker absolutely blew up in this one. 23 points for Jabari in 24 minutes, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Of course, it came on a true shooting of 68%, 63% from the field. So this is perfect for you to sell high on Jabari. Hey, look, they moved him to the bench. He's playing those 24 minutes. That's what will happen when Collins is back. He can still do it. Of course, he's not going to be this explosive and have 33% usage with a true shooting of 68% as we move forward. The fact that he is in a 23 to 24 minute a night role, that can be useful from time to time, but overall, I think the consistency puts him right at the back end of a 12-teamer, probably more of a 14-team league guy, if this is what his role is going to be, and it is what I believe his role is going to be as we move forward. So that is, it does give you that great opportunity, I think, to try and sell him off if you do have him. Trae Young, 41 minutes. It's a lot of minutes for Young on a back-to-back. 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists. The shooting percentage was horrific. 32 from the field. That will come up, I think, when the Baptist returns. We're 1 game away from Collins coming back. Well, Cam Reddish, quietly, he's playing better of late. The shooting has improved. He's not as destructive as he was. He is not a must-roster guy by any stretch, but he is an interesting 16-teamer for sure. 14-teamer, maybe. 14 points in 35 minutes, 2 triples and 3 steals. One of the things that I didn't like about him coming out of college necessarily, but when we looked at him and looked at his translations coming out of college, well, he shoots the 3 ball at a really high volume and he gets steals at a pretty good rate. You can be a 3-point guy who gets steals, and if other things come around, his passing's been better, and that's useful. So that makes him an interesting guy to watch. And I reckon if you put him and Hunter in equal minutes, you might actually get more value out of someone like Cam Reddish. So he's definitely a 12-team watch list guy and a 16-team must-add. And, available in 90% of Yahoo leagues. In 14s, he's sort of on the border there. Fanner Pants, you know my thoughts on Kevin Huerter. 17, 4 and 2, 3 triples and a steal. He's a 12-team league guy. While DeAndre Bembry re-entered the rotation at the expense of Vince Carter, 20 minutes for Bembry. He's not going to do a huge amount for the season, but that's interesting for deeper leagues. While Fernando had 4 and 6 in 17 minutes. Wouldn't be surprised to see him move into the backup role and then take those Alex Len minutes, who had 4, 4 and 3. As for Hunter, foul trouble got him. 5 points in 23 minutes, but you know that I don't think that he is a very good fantasy option, and he is more of a 14-team league guy, even in the big minutes that he usually gets. The next game that we'll take a look at, we've got the Lakers and the Bucks. Big win for the Bucks here, 111-104. Anthony Davis, this is really not good to me from the Lakers in terms of coaching and injury management. Davis was questionable entering this game. Frank Vogel had some comments saying that basically the pain hadn't changed from when he heard it. It hadn't improved. And there's a couple of things to mention here. I feel that this is pretty dangerous for Davis. And I think that in large part he has heard everyone bitching and moaning and complaining and posting Mr. Glass GIFs and pictures of people shoveling money into fire. So he is going to try and play through situations when perhaps he shouldn't, because he wants to prove how tough of a guy he is and how, no, he's not injury prone. I think that's a legitimate problem, because he played the entire second half here, 43 minutes in this game on a bung ankle that was bothering him, and the coach, look, he's pushing through it, but the coach needs to pull him out here. They still ended up losing by 7. Now, his line was great, 36 and 10 with 5 assists, 1 steal and 3 blocks. It didn't impact his overall production, but what it could impact, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, does this lead to a potential other injury down the track? I think it's a real worrying sign. I could be completely wrong with it, but I am certain that there is definitely... I am certain. I'm not certain, obviously. I believe that Davis is out here trying to play down these situations or push through them, sometimes against the medical advice, because of a narrative that exists about him, and I just hope that nothing significant comes of it. LeBron had a triple-double, 21, 12, and 11, although the field goal percentage was ruffled. Dan Green, massive from Danny, 21 points on 7 threes. Don't overreact to this. We've seen how bad he's been most of the season. He is a 14 to 16 team league guy at best. He is still unbelievably rostered in 50% of leagues. KCP had 18 points in 34 minutes, while it was a real stinker for both Rajon Rondo and Avery Bradley. Rondo still has that same appeal as an assists guy. Caruso also stunk in this one. Those 3 backup guards were quite rough for the Lakers. It's not a great matchup going up against Milwaukee, really, for anybody in the league, but that was it was rough for those 3 guys. I wouldn't be surprised if KCP just holds this starting spot down ahead of Bradley for the rest of the season. Bradley's been rough for 3 years, pretty much. KCP's been pretty bad himself, so it is a bunch of guards who have struggled for years and years and years trying to fill up those minutes. Of course, it doesn't help that Kyle Kuzma's out, meaning that he can't push down to the wing, but his start to the season has also been pretty rough, and the Lakers have been playing through it and winning on the back of Davis and James. With Davis back, Howard and McGee, they weren't able to influence the same level of production that they had in that game prior. Nobody is surprised about that. Giannis Antetokounmpo is shooting over 40% on threes in December. He hit 5 of them here. He had 34, 11, and 7, a steal and a block, and even the free throws, 7 of 10. That's not too bad. The fact that he is taking threes confidently and making them is massive. And he's, I think, at about 33 or 34% for the season. And it was, again, like last year, just because of a real rough start of 10% over a stretch of period of time. And now it's making up for it. Exactly what happened last season. I don't know why he starts years so slow. Can we expect the same sort of free throw regression as well? That's a possibility, because that happened last year where he couldn't hit free throws and then he was really strong down the stretch. That's something to monitor. While Brook Lopez, 33 minutes, 10 and 4, 4 steals, 3 blocks. The shot still wasn't there, 38% from the field. This is why I highlighted him as a buy low guy, because he was never going to be that guy that continued to shoot 30%. And still, while it's a marginal increase, it is good to see these numbers improving, and I think it will continue to get better for Lopez. George Hill apparently is the best shooter ever. 60% on threes in this one again, 21 points. While Eric Bledsoe is out, he does have value. An absolute guaranteed 14-team league guy, but a solid enough 12-teamer. Well, the big ragu, Dante DiVincenzo, now he didn't shoot that well, 5 points on 7 shots, but 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. I like him as a 12-team league guy. Wesley Matthews probably had his best game as a member of the Bucks. He had 13 with 3 triples, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. I'm not overly excited about him. He's more of a 16-teamer. While Chris Middleton got into some foul trouble. Wasn't the best night there for mids in this one. Let us go on to the next game, the Brooklyn Nets and the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs get the big win in the end, 118-105. Let's talk about Spencer Dinwiddie, though, who was unbelievable. 41 points, a career high in 34 minutes, 4 triples, 5 assists. Usage absolutely out of the arse. 46% usage for Dinwiddie. 9 of 10 from the line. He has been unreal since Kyrie returned. Since Kyrie has been out. At the start of the season, he was bad when Kyrie was there. How those two interacted wasn't good. I don't know how this all works out. Will he get traded away? They're not going to minimize Kyrie Irving. They're not going to come in and say, Kyrie, you now play the 26-minute Spencer Dinwiddie role. That is just not going to happen. You can have as many arguments as you want about how good Dinwiddie's been and the team is better with Dinwiddie. And sometimes I might actually agree that, Dinwiddie has actually made this team look better at times. But they are not going to play 27 minutes a night of Kyrie. And the way they used those two together at the start of the season didn't work. Now, that could work. It could change. I don't know if Dinwiddie's getting traded, but if they traded Dinwiddie, he's absolute premium price on the market. I just don't see what they're getting back there. I just think it's going to be... Now, I don't know when Kyrie's coming back. Maybe it's a month. It's getting to that stage where we just have to ride out the good times with Dinwiddie, and then if in February he's the 120th best player, which is a real possibility, we just got to go, oh, well, he got us this far. I think that's maybe what happens. Jarrett Allen was great, 19, 13, and 6. He's taken so many big steps forward this season that I'm glad that we're not seeing a 24-24 minute split with him and DeAndre Jordan. Jordan still is capping his ceiling, but it's been a massive improvement. Where was this from Jarrett last season? If he actually played this well as he did last season, they never would have even brought in DeAndre Jordan, and we'd be getting 34 minutes a night from Jarrett Allen this season. The artist formerly known as Taurean Prince continues to be terrible with his shooting. 9 points, but the rebounds consistently high. 2 steals and a block. Nice. While Garrett Temple, 34 minutes, 10 and 3, 3 steals, 2 triples, a nice bounce back outside of the fact that he shot 17% from the field. Of course, when Karis LeVert does return, that is going to have an impact on Temple, but with the injury to David Nwaba today, he should be able to maintain minutes in the low 20s. Now, as for Nwaba, a torn Achilles tendon that, of course, ends his season. This is horrible news from a bloke that everybody likes, great teammate, great defensive type player, has his struggles, but he was shooting the ball pretty well this season. He was getting about 15, 16 minutes a night. Now, who's going to get those? You'd think that Baby Neck will be able to absorb some of that playing time. Wilson Chandler, Temple gets some of it. Of course, LeVert comes back. And then you've got guys like Janan Musa or Rowdy Rodions Kuruks and Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, who's been playing at the moment. I don't know why we got 22 minutes of Luwawu-Cabarrot today when he was 0 of 5, but he has been playing as well. But the one thing I want to talk about with Nwaba is that we keep seeing this. Nwaba was questionable to enter this game with an ankle sprain, played, and tore his Achilles on the exact same area. Now, we saw it with Kevin Durant, with his calf strain leading to an Achilles tear. We saw it with Rocket Rodney Hood, with an Achilles soreness leading into an Achilles tear. We saw it with JJ Barea, who said he had some Achilles soreness before he tore his Achilles. I'm not saying that these medical staffs are being negligent, but there is a real problem here with players having these injuries. Now, ankle is not your Achilles, obviously, but it's not far bloody off. Like, it's right there. It's the tendon that's on your ankle. So it's either compensation type injuries, like Durant with his calf, lack of stabilization leading to these problems. It's a real concern that these things continually seem to happen. That you have an injury, you play through it, and then you bang it and you're out for the year. Even John Wall didn't happen in the game, but he had that surgery on his heel, and then because of the surgery on his heel, he was walking around and slipped and tore his Achilles. So many of these Achilles injuries are because of destabilization around that area, and it's something we really have to watch and be careful with, because it's just happening too often now. I don't know what the solution is, but it is something that's definitely happening. Smoking Joe Harris, 9 points in 29 minutes, 7 rebounds. Just didn't take any shots, 10% usage, I guess, because Dinwiddie was taking every shot. But they need to get Harris more involved in that. While DeAndre Jordan still rostered in 73% of leagues. I've got no idea why. The 11 rebounds are fine. That's great. He took 1 shot. He's not enough minutes. He's the inferior center. There's no reason for him to be rostered in that many leagues. Rostered in more leagues than Joe Harris, than Taurean Prince. That is insanity to me. On to the Spurs. It continues to be an absolute minefield in terms of trying to navigate what's going on here. The minutes, the crossover between DeJounte Murray and Derek White was not there. 16, 5, and 3 for DeJounte in 27 minutes with 3 steals. Derek White, 13, 5, and 3 with 3 steals and a block. Both guys shot unbelievably well. They both played well. But until Popovich, and I think he's just too stubborn at this point to do this, and something else I'm going to talk about in a second, until he does it. Like, it's so hard to get excited about White. Like, I think Derek White is really good. He's definitely a top 100 guy in a 30-minute-a-night role, and he should have a 30-minute-a-night role. I think Popovich is too stubborn to do it. Bryn Forbes is no good. He's not good. Simple as that. 6 points in 22 minutes. Can't hit a shot to save his life this season. So for all his spacing that he provides, he's actually doing nothing. Patty Mills was great here. 27 points with 7 triples. That's not consistent enough. He's obviously not the future of this team as much as I love Patty. It's so hard with White at the moment. Look, we know if he gets 28 a night, he's a 12-team league guy. But my hopes of it happening, they're gone. Like, I just don't think it's happening, unfortunately, until they make a switch and then he plays 28 and DeJounte plays 20. Like, that's the sort of shit that's going to go on, I think, with this team. Aldridge had 20 and 10 with 4 blocks, a great game from him, while Jakob Poeltl continues to be really, really good. And if there's any sort of injury to Aldridge and he has to come in and log 28 a night, he's a guaranteed top 100 guy. He's a guy that I liked from a few years ago as really significant, fantasy upside. But this situation's just shitful. It's really not good at all. And that's the concern. They started Marco Bellinelli at power forward in this game. Now, I'm not a massive fan of an Aldridge-Poeltl frontcourt. The lack of shooting is a real problem. But Bellinelli, same thing goes here with Lonnie Walker. The fact that we're getting these 10 minutes of Trey Lyles and we're getting Lonnie playing just 14 minutes, he wasn't that good, Lonnie Walker, in this game. That's fair, 4 and 6. But I just get the feeling that Popovich is just never going to allow him to get these minutes this season. It just doesn't feel like it's going to happen. And that's going to be the worry there with him. So he's rostered in 2% of Yahoo leagues. So I'd have him in all 16s, no worries. But again, like a Kevin Porter, a guy that does really flash with people because he can score in bunches, but he just lacks in so many areas. If he can string a couple of big games together in a row, I would be really inclined to sell him in a dynasty league. He's going to play more than this at some point in his career. I just don't think the overall hype behind Lonnie Walker from a fantasy point of view is going to stand up to the test of time. We'll see that, though. The Drip only had the 4 points here in 14 minutes on some poor shooting numbers, but at least he did rebound at a strong rate. The Spurs, that's a big win from them, but they continue to be completely confounding and confusing in terms of how those rotations get used. All right, on to the last game of the night now. The Rockets get the big win over the Clippers on the road, 122-117. Russell Westbrook was fantastic. 40 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. He's the first Houston Rockets player not named James Harden to score 40 since Kevin Martin did it. And the thing about Westbrook at the moment is he has fixed his free throws. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a permanent thing, but 12 of 13 from the line here for 92%. Like, that is one of those things that not only free throw percentage, it impacts the free throw percentage category, but it impacts your overall scoring. And he has got that stuff figured out. Over the last month, he's the 18th best player, shooting 83% from the line. He's at 77 over the course of the season. He's the third-ranked player over the last 2 weeks, averaging 89% from the line, averaging 27, 8, and 7 with 2 steals, and shooting 53% from the field. And it's not coming on an unsustainable three-point shooting, 29%. That's never going to change, I don't think. He's hitting his twos, he's hitting his free throws, and he looks a lot better than what he did even to begin this season. So that is great news if you have Westbrook or if you're a Houston Rockets fan. Harden had 28 points with 10 assists and 5 triples, while Capella 16 and 8 with 4 steals and a block. Pretty strong there. Double-double from PJ Tucker. He had 2 blocks there as well. Those rebounds, they just fluctuate so much with PJ that it is hard to get a full read on those. Of course, he's just more of a steals and threes guy, while Dan House, 35 minutes, 10 points, 5 assists, one of his better games. But the upside is really limited, and when Eric Gordon does return, that's going to eat into that further. He's a 14-teamer. Ben McLemore's not a 12-teamer either. 8 points in 22 for Ben. On the Clippers, Paul George was great here. 36 and 9, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 52% shooting, 6 triples, unbelievable stuff. While Paddy Beverly fouled out and then also got ejected. 10 points, 7 assists, and 4 steals. He is a 12-team league guy that's available in a lot of spots. It doesn't necessarily have to be for your team, but he can help a 12-team league roster. Landry Shamet hit 4 threes, had 2 blocks, which is obviously
a surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
He really should just be looked at as a moderately sized lead guy and a streamer for threes, while Kawhi had 25 and 9. The table, Montrezl Harrell had been pretty quiet, but 75% shooting for 19 and 6 will get you back on track with a steal and a block. Of course, when his minutes go up, that means if it's a Zubac's minutes go down, just 15 there for Zubac's, while Mo Harkless just the 16 minutes, as we got a lot more of other guys, especially Shamet. Lou Williams ejected as well. He only played the 17 minutes. That does help Shamet get that extra playing time that he got and took advantage of in today's game. Let's go through some injuries now because, of course, big news in Toronto. We'll get to that in a sec. DeAndre Ayton is going to be out for Phoenix tomorrow with an ankle sprain, so you can fire up your Aaron Baineses, fire up your Dario Saric's and your Frank Kaminsky's. There's streaming value in all of those guys, while Cam Johnson has a hip problem. Really worried here about Johnson because this is something that caused teams to take him completely off their draft board, these hip and back issues, and now it's flaring up. If he is out, that's, again, more minutes for Bridges, more usage for guys like Oubre, potentially a bigger role for Saric there as well. Now, for the Raptors, some bad news. 3 players out indefinitely. Now, yesterday I talked about Gasol being out for multiple weeks. We've seen that with a hammy. That was always going to happen. Norman Powell with his shoulder injury, a shoulder subluxation, he is going to be out multiple weeks. He missed 6 weeks with the same sort of injury last season. So I think we're looking at 3 to 4 for Gasol, 4 to 6 for Powell would be my guess. I think Gasol's a drop with a 4-week injury. Powell, yeah, who knows how that's going to go. With him, he was obviously rolling, shooting a really high percentage. I think it's really tough. Now, Gasol's clear that I think he's cooked. You move on from him. I think if it's 6 weeks with no IR, it's pretty tough to hold on to someone like Powell. And then out of nowhere, to hit us like an absolute ton of bricks, Pascal Siakam is out indefinitely with a groin injury. Now, I had no idea about this one when we did the show yesterday, but this is a massive, massive blow for this Raptors team, who are losing 3 starters. Now, we don't know if Fred VanVleet's going to be back. We imagine he'll be back pretty soon, but this is rough. Like, there are a lot of opportunities opening up here. So, immediately, the must-roster guy is Serge Ibaka. There's no brainer decision about that. He was trending towards a drop anyway, as was the Jedi, OG Anunoby.
Hello there.
But with these injuries, they are both absolute must-rosters in every league. Ibaka, Anunoby, done. Now, what we saw when Gasol pinged his hammy, that we got a lot of Rondé Hollis-Jefferson minutes and barely any Waterboy Chris Boucher minutes. But with Siakam out, Boucher has to get minutes now. And on a permanent basis, when you stack Boucher and Hollis-Jefferson next to each other, Boucher is the guy that you want. Even if it's a 28-minute situation for Rondé and a 22 minutes for Boucher, Boucher is going to be that guy to get. So we look at Ibaka, we look at Anunoby, of course VanVleet's a must-roster guy, and Lowry's usage is going to go absolutely through the roof, and watch his field goal percentage, but it's going to go through the roof, and then is there a risk of injury with him? That's something else we've got to worry about. But Boucher, so Ibaka, Anunoby, Boucher, Hollis-Jefferson, and then you get someone like Pat McCaw, who was already seeing mid to high 20s in minutes with VanVleet out, so he'll just keep running with that, and then if Fred misses more time, you're going to get more. Now, he's not a great option. He's more of a 14 to 16 team league guy, and that's where Terrence Davis fits into that situation as well, as a 14 to 16 team league guy with this Powell injury. Now, if VanVleet misses time, then those guys might step up to be short-term stream 12-teamers. But basically what we'll see is VanVleet comes in and he plays the Powell minutes. So what we've been seeing from McCaw and Davis at the moment will just sort of continue on. We might get a 1-game, 2-game crossover with both no Norm and no Fred, and that'll give that boost to those guys like McCaw and to Davis. But basically, from what we've seen recently, it's a straight swap, Powell out, VanVleet in. So it's not great, obviously, long term. Now, the Siakam one, we just don't know a time frame on this. I would guess at this point 2 weeks. They said stretched groin, which sounds like I should be doing this.
Giggity.
But I don't actually know. There's no diagnosis. It's not a medical term. It's not a real diagnosis, so we don't know what that means. You would have to think that him being ready for Christmas is in danger. That's a week away. I don't think we see him again in 2019, Siakam. And then, maybe it's a 6-weeker. I don't think it will be. I think we're looking at 6 for Norm, 3 for Gasol, and 2 for Siakam. But it could be longer. Out indefinitely does not mean out long term. It just means we don't know when. But the disturbing part about the press release is they'll be assessed on a week-to-week basis. That's not a short-term situation. So I think we've got to think minimum 2, maybe even 3 for Siakam. It's definitely a big worry for all these injuries here for Toronto. But opportunity opening up for a bunch of these other guys. Again, Ibaka, Anunoby, Boucher, Hollis-Jefferson, McCaw, Davis. McCaw, Davis for deepers. Hollis-Jefferson sneaks in maybe back in 12-teamer, and Boucher's a 12-team ad as well at this point. So some pretty bad injury reporting or injury news that came out. We also got some positive news. I guess that Eric Gordon is looking to return pretty soon. Might be around Christmas, might be before, might be after. He's going to be back. Do not burn a waiver ad on him for a 12-team league. Do not burn fab on him. He was not a 12-team league guy before the injury. The Russell Westbrook factor means he's not going to be a 12-team league guy for the majority of this season. He is not an ad. He's just going to have an impact on House. He's going to have an impact on McLemore. He is not someone that, man, I've got to go grab Eric Gordon. I don't see him as a top 100 or top 120 guy for the rest of the season. And then, of course, the bad news about Nwaba, which we covered earlier. Torn his Achilles. He is done for the season. Minutes there go to Baby Neck. Maybe Theo Pinson gets in the mix a little bit more. Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, Jana Musa, Rowdy Rodions Kuruks could also get those minutes there, but not much that's going to have too much of an impact on fantasy basketball. Let's go to DFS now. We've got 10 games coming up on Friday. We're looking at DraftKings pricing for these games. All right, the first game we're going to take a look at for Friday is those tricky Sacramento Kings. They're going to take on the Indiana Pacers. Both Jeremy Lamb and TJ Warren have popped up on the injury report with questionable tags. Jez has the sore groin. Tony Warren has an illness. If those guys are out, well, it is absolute chaos because you're going to have to get big minutes from the holidays. Aaron, Justin, they're going to get big playing time there. Maybe even Edmund Sumner comes in the camp. Can he get some minutes there? He's not really too much of a DFS option, but Aaron Holiday would be an absolute explosion type option. While Juzza would have some interesting value there as well. Now, just so you don't get confused, Juzza is Justin, Jezza is Jeremy. So Juzza in, Jezza out, Lamb for Holiday. So there's so many confusing names on this team. Of course, there's all your TJs, there's all your Holidays. Anyway. If Warren is out, I think also Dougie McDirt could get some extra playing time. He is real hit or miss, although he has been, to his credit, way more aggressive this season. So bigger games from him aren't completely out of the question in this sort of scenario. For the Kings, who knows what the hell Walton's going to do in terms of Bagley and Holmes, and Bogdanovic is on the injury report with an ankle issue. They've been limiting him as well. If he is out, then, oh my God, Trevor Ariza is going to have to play minutes. That should be fun for everybody involved. For your point guards, Malcolm Brogdon's at 7,700. I love that, especially if either one of Lamb or Warren are out. That should be an absolute monster for Brogo. While De'Aaron Foxy Fox, just ridiculous in his first game back, dropped 37 points. In that one at $7,000, that's really hard to ignore for Foxy. Timothy John McConnell at 3,900. He is going to be able to smash that number if one of those two guys are out. In fact, at the moment, he's already playing 20 minutes a night and 22 points a night. And at 3,900, give him 25 minutes a night. That's a 27 pointer, which gives you that real value at 3,900. As Holiday at 43, we'd smash that at a pretty high rate if those guys are out. At shooting guard, Jez Lamb's at 48. Well, he's been trending down anyway, so I wouldn't want to get too interested in him, while Budrick Hield is at 64. His first game with Foxy back didn't work all that well, just 23 points in 29 minutes, and it's a big reason why his salary's come down by $800. He'd just be a tournament guy for me. Bogdanovic, I'm not interested in. Well, Justin Holiday at 4,600. Give me his brother over him any day of the week, but at 4,600, there is some tournament value, but they have elevated that salary for Juzza up by $1,100. For your small forwards, you got Tony Warren. He's at 4,900. If he happens to play and Jez Lamb is out, then that is a really nice price for Warren. 4,900, he had 27 last game. Look, his upside does get capped because his inability to do too much else apart from score, but there is value in that sort of a salary there for Warren. And then you got McDirt at 36, should be a tournament guy in the absence of those players. While the pencil, Harrison Barnesy. Barnsley's at 5,300. With all those guys back, I would fade him unless Bogdan is out, and then that's going to give more opportunity for Barnsley. Maybe they get him involved with bench units a little bit more. For your big men, Domantas Sabonis is at 8,400. He feels like he's a lock for 40 almost every day, so I'm big on him. Richaun Holmes is down to $5,000. That last game, he had 29 points. With some defensive numbers, it's really hard to get excited about him with the way that Walton is running things, while Marvin Bagley at 5,600 only for tournaments because we just don't know how they're going to use him. While Miles Turner's been playing much better of late, staggering him and Sabonis is working. At 5,300, he's giving us 31 a night. Hey, if I get 30 plus at 5,300, that's absolute value. There is always the risk that it's Miles Turner and he could completely disappear, but there is at least marginal appeal now that they are using him in a different way. The next game up, we've got the Memphis Grizzlies and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Grizz are 1-point favourites on the road. The total is 224. Grayson Allen is questionable. At point guard, the Padawan, Colin Sexton's at 5,500. I love that value from Sexo, averaging 29 over the last 5. It's a good matchup for him. He's going to take shots. Upside might be capped, but a massively strong floor. While Darius Garland's at 4,500. Yeah, hard to get too excited about him. D'Anthony Melton at 46. Just a weird absence of him last game for Solomon Hill to play. That was confoundingly dumb from Taylor Jenkins. This matchup is really, really positive for guards, though, going up against the Cavs. We know that. You could throw Melto, the wave pool, into a tournament, but I think the upside is a little bit limited here with how they're using things. Ja Morant's at 78. The matchup is sensational for Ja. He's like a 37, 38 guy almost every night. 7,800, bang, lock it in, let's go. For your shooting guards, Jordo Clarkson, 4,400. No. Kevin Porter Jr.'s at 39. His numbers have been down a little bit lately. I'm not super invested in getting him involved. While Brooksy at 4,900. Brooksy's been giving us 25 a night. He can always have that occasional turd burger, which, shits in your soup. But the upside value of a 35-point guy at 4,900, that can be a useful option. Maybe more for tournaments, though. Small forwards, Chetty Osman's at 3,900. Really good from him last game. I trust that absolutely to no degree. Same with Jay Crowder. And then on to your big men. You got Tristan Tomo Thompson, 6,100. Been relatively consistent the last couple of games, 30 a night. I'm not super keen on him. I think the upside is low, and there is that chance that a real stinker comes up, but I don't mind him as a cash guy. Nance is one that you can fade the shit out of, while Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. is at 6,800. Last couple of games have been a bit down, especially last game where he got into significant foul trouble, but this is, again, a pretty strong matchup for Jacko that I think at 6,800 there is strong tournament value. Brando Clark at 56, he is on an absolutely dominating roll at the moment, and I wrote this in my Yahoo article today. Over the in the history of the NBA, for rookies playing 20 minutes a game, minimum 20 minutes a game, that was a filter I used, I just chucked 20 minutes a game, he has the highest true shooting out of literally any rookie ever. And that was astonishing to me. It's like 70%. The second highest rookie was Mitchie Robinson, and third was Jackson Hayes, so it's all happening in recent times, but yeah. He also had, out of the top 15 players, the highest three-point attempt rate of those highest true shooting guys, equal to Arvydas Sabonis in his rookie season. So just massive stuff here from Brown and Clark. The Muppet John Henson, no thanks. Kevin Love, who knows? 50 points, 20 points. Tournament's great because at 7,000, that's pretty cheap. But man, it's so hard to get a read on what he's going to do. While Jonas Valanciunas at 6,900.
Giggity!
Look, he's been better the last couple of games. I have a limited amount of confidence in Jonas at this point. Let's move on. The next game up, we've got the Detroit Pistons, the Boston Celtics. The Celtics are 8-point favourites. The total is 214.5. Marcus Smart is out with what must be the worst eye infections of all time. The Duck, Luke Kennard, is doubtful with his knee soreness. Blake Griffin is doubtful with his knee soreness. It is the first game of a back-to-back. I expect both of those guys to play on Saturday, but this could be an absolute disaster. Now, if Hayward is out, you're going to get Shemi Ojeleye most likely starting and most likely doing nothing. For your point guards, Langston Galloway, 3,300. Now, in these situations where guys like Kennard and Griffin have been out, Galloway just gets force-fed a ton of minutes. He's at 3,300, a really, really low score. Can he drop 30? Of course he can. Can he drop 4? Maybe. In fact, Al-Farouq Aminu called. He let me know that maybe Langston should get this one.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Yeah, we missed that one with the Chief out. So Galloway is that, but at that price, there's almost no failure. Maybe. It's pretty gross, though, to look at him and rely upon it. I love Derrick Rose here at 6,000. That's a really strong option. Kemba's at 8,300, who has been unbelievably on fire. That would give me an element of pause, except for the fact that it's the Pistons. And we've seen guards put up big numbers unless Bruce Brown just makes it his mission to really lock him down. And that is a concern. As for the Shark himself, 5,100, I think that Brown at 5,100 is really, really a good option. Now, he was bad last game, but again, these absences are going to allow Brown, whose usage has spiked recently, to have an opportunity to put up numbers. At shooting guard, Jaylen Brown's at 6,900.
Giggity!
That's better. Great game from him last time out, 41 against the Mavericks. If Hayward's out, I'm way more interested in Brown here. While Steve McKay look at minimum salary, they might have to give him minutes. With all these injuries, we might need to see some bigger minutes for Svi. I'm not massively into him outside of tournaments. Tone Snell, never into it. At small forward, Gordo Hayward's at 62. Like, if Hayward plays, I think 62 is worth looking at. I think we'll fade it at this point, though. And then on to the big man. Drummo's at 9,600. No Griffin. He should absolutely smash the big avocado. He had 52 points last game in his first game back from his own eye issues, while Markeef's at 5,000. And with Griffo out, and I forgot to mention the crucifix Christian Wood is also out with a knee injury, Markeef is going to get 30 plus, and he should provide great value at that salary. You got Vanilla Tice at 41, Ennis Cantor, Thon McCare. Not interested in any of those guys really at their current pricing. The Washington Wizards and the Toronto Raptors, I talked about it earlier, but the injuries to Toronto, and we don't know the status of Fred VanVleet for this one, makes it really, really interesting. Flaming Mo Wagner is out for Washington as well, so they're going to have those opportunities, and you're going to have an opportunity to get Onjeks Pasechniks into a lineup. For Toronto, no Siakam, no Norm Powell, no Marc Gasol, and if no VanVleet, that makes this lineup an absolute real disaster option, but massive, massive DFS ability or opportunity here. Let's look at the point guards. Lowry's at 8,500. He had 58 last game. He feels like an absolute lock to get involved just because of how many shots he's going to have to take and minutes he's going to have to play. We have to like Lowry here. Thomas is at 5,100, Isaiah Thomas that is. I think that's a pretty good option as well. And then you got Terrence Davis at 41, who I'd really be interested in only if VanVleet happens to be out. Now, with Powell gone, I think we're going to get more Pat McCaw into those minutes. We're going to get more Davis, but the option there, if VanVleet is gone, then Davis is going to have to step up and play 20 plus and really be an option. Ish Smith's at 5,000. A lot of minutes last game from Ish. Wasn't the greatest production, but he still can be a 27-point type of a player with all these injuries for Washington as well. At shooting guard, Beal, 91. Love it. Absolutely love it. VanVleet himself, 7,700. It's a pretty high price for Fred. We don't know if he'd be on any limit coming back from the knee injury. That might make him a bit of a fade-ish sort of guy to me here. Troy Brown's at 5,200. He's been around that mark. I don't know if he's really got enough upside, but I think he's got at least enough of a floor value to consider using. Isaac Bonga, Garrison Matthews, that's a real player, and Malcolm Miller, not really guys that I'm keen on. The Jedi.
Hello there.
Hello there, indeed. 5,600 for OG Anunoby. No Norman Powell, no Pascal Siakam. He should absolutely smash through that number. I like him quite a bit. Paddy McCaw's at 39 now. He is a do-nothing player if I've ever seen one. But at 3,900, he's going to have to play 30 minutes. He's going to have to take shots. I think we have to look at him as an option as well. And that's it's a pretty sad state of affairs. Davis Bertans is at 6,900. He's going to be taking plenty of shots for this Wizards team. So I like Bertans here as well. He sort of fades into the background of the value in the other spots. The water boy, Chris Boucher, only 6 minutes in that game that Gasol went down. He went, that's a bit weird. But now with Siakam down, he has to play. He just has to play. 3,300, you got to use him. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson at 41, he has to play as well. He's going to get close to 30 minutes. Got to love him. Serge Ibaka at 7,400. Yes, they bumped his salary by 2,400. I do not care. He should still beat that value. So Boucher, Hollis-Jefferson, Ibaka, Anunoby, Kyle Lowry. Value right across the board for this Raptors team. For the Wizards, their two centers are Mahinmi and Pasechniks. Now, Pasechniks had 20 points last time, and Mahinmi had 23. And at 47 for Mahinmi and 42 for Pasechniks, I'm not actually sure there's much value in those guys. All the value seems to be coming on that Toronto side of the equation, but definitely some weird stuff going to be happening lineup-wise in this matchup. The next game that we're going to take a squiz at, the Dallas Mavericks, they take on the Philadelphia 76ers. No Luka Doncic. The Sixers are 8-point favourites. The total is 213.5. And along with Doncic, Delon Wright and Seth Curry have both appeared on the injury report. Delon with a finger issue and Curry with low back tightness. Now, if those guys are out, you're going to be firing a lot of your Jalen the Burner Brunson's value up. Timmy Hardaway is going to have to take shots, and whether he hits them or not is up to him. But he's going to have that opportunity. And then you're going to have guys like maybe it's Ryan Brokoff who comes in, plays 10 minutes. Justin Jackson will play 20 minutes, but he is very Tony Snell-like, although he occasionally can have big scoring games, making him an interesting GPP guy, assuming those other blokes get ruled out. KP, Kristaps Porzingis, is going to have some big numbers as well.
Percentages.
And maybe even Dorian Finney-Smith has to take shots. Some real big injury-type situations going on here. At point guard, Ben Simmons, 7,900 for Simo. I really like his floor value here. Ceiling maybe not that big, but the floor value is great for cash. Well, the burner, Brunson's at 6,400. He should absolutely smash through that. He had 36 last game, and there's no reason he can't do that again. Seth Curry was great last time out at 4,900. Again, that back issue is probably a little bit caution-inducing. And the fact that his big games have come on some really hot, unsustainable shooting makes him a little bit of a fade type of a guy here. Right? The other guy who could get some minutes, of course, is Jose Juan Barea, who is at $3,000, absolute minimum. We know that he can occasionally have these big outbursts. I wouldn't discount him from having a 25-point game. DraftKings points, but 25 points. Shooting guard, Richardson, 5,600 for him. He had 35 points against the Heat. Love the low salary. The matchup's pretty good. I think Richie is absolutely a guy. Who remembers Richie Richardson? The first bloke that ever wore those Greg Chappell hats, but with the stiff brim and the dyed to match the team. I'm pretty sure he was the first guy, and then followed on by guys like Mark Ward. If you understand anything about what I'm saying, then I obviously know what country you come from. Richie Richardson there at 5,600. Plays well against Dallas, plays well in general, has been quite down with his shooting, but I do like him here in this one. Timmy Hardaway's at 53, you know the drill. But even now, with these injuries cropping up, I think we almost have to think he's going to get that floor value with significant tournament upside as well. The painter Matisse Thybulle was pretty bad last game. He's at 3,200, not a great DFS option. While Toby Harris at 7,100. Toby's been a little bit under that value lately with everyone back on this Sixers team. It is harder for him to get to that number, but he's not a bad option. I think he's got a relatively safe floor as well. Mike Scott, no thank you. Justin Jackson, minimum salary. I talked about him already. If he gets you 24 points, which is really a possibility if these guys are out, then that is real value for you. For your big man, Dwight Powell at 3,800. I actually don't mind that for Powell. That is just such a low price that it takes nothing to actually get to value there. And again, if these other guys are out, not that they necessarily play the same position, but it means guys like Jackson and Finney-Smith need to push down to the 3 a little bit more. Guys like Hardaway need to push down to the 2 more. And that opens up more of those minutes for Kleber and Powell and Porzingis to take all of those front court minutes, which could actually give him 20, 22 points. He had 21 points last game, and that's enough value at 3,800. Horf is at 6,300. I'm not massively into that one, while Joel Embiid at 10. He's giving us 51 a night. You cannot complain about 51 a night, 58 a night over his last 3. In fact, that is at 10,000. We absolutely love that. While Porzingis at 85, also just cranking the usage out at a really big level, 8,500. We have to love that with Donch on the sideline. Maxi Kleber, probably not someone I'm massively into, although that opportunity could present itself for him. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the New York Knickerbockers, the Miami Heat, the Pat Riley Bowl. The Knicks are underdogs here by 10 points. The total is 214. Goran Dragic is likely to return. Justice Winslow is out, while Julius Randle and Frank Ntilikina both appeared on the injury report, although they have been upgraded to probable. Alonzo Trier is questionable with a concussion, not that he's been in the rotation anyway. At point guard, the Iron Shoulders at 5,500. He was playing really well before that injury, and he was putting up numbers that would make you say that's a good value play there. But given the nature of the injury, the groin issue, he's an old man, I'm not massively going to get into him here. Rowan Barrett Jr. is at 57. Big from him against the Hawks, 39 in 29 minutes. The Heat are a completely different situation, so that would lead me to say no thank you. While Kendrick Nunn's at 65. The Dragic factor is a real one. Now, if Dragic does get ruled out, that puts Nunn right back into it. But that is a $500 increase from where he was. And he had 42 in 41 minutes. And the fact that Winslow's still out does work in his favour. But that's pushing a little bit too high, that price for me. Frankie Ntilikina, no thank you. While Lord Alfred Payton's at 55. And we had the 3-point guard rotation back for the Knicks, which just pissed on the value of all 3 of those guys. For your shooting guard, James Butler's at $9,000.
Because he's my butler.
He's just deferring so much, and that's fine. It just doesn't mean that at 9,000 at the moment in a game that could be a blowout, it's probably too risky. The Spur Dunk Robinson's at 48, only for tournaments because it just requires him getting hot. And same with Tyler Hero at 51, who was really good last game, had 31 points. And the absence of Winslow does help him, but Dragic returning puts a little bit of a spike in what he can do. For your small forwards, Derek Jones Jr. at 47. He's got 30 minutes a night the last 2 games. Winslow out helps him. Defensive upside is huge in terms of steals. He shot the ball well last time. 4,700 is not a bad value, and I actually like the matchup for him. While Marcus Morris at 63. Morris's numbers have been a little bit down, averaging 28 over the last 3. I think he's not bad, but at 57 I'd be way more into it. 63 is okay. I think there is pretty limited upside though there for Morris. The Fort Kevin Knox actually played well against the Hawks. I don't know that I'd want to get into him 2 games in a row, so that's probably a fade. At the big men spots, Julius Randle at 7,100. Playing better under Mike Miller. 39 a game under him, which at 7,100 is absolutely fine. No problem with him. While Mitch Robinson, will he take it from here?
And Mitch Robinson says, I'll take it from here.
Well, there you go. He said it. So he had 45 in the last game, staying out of foul trouble generally. They're using him a little bit more. I do like him at that sort of salary. While my mate, Bam Adebayo.
Bam, 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 bam.
he is just on an absolute tear. 52-point average over the last 5 games. That is a monster. Now, that salary is huge. He is a lock for an all-star, I think, now. I can't see how we debate it. I should go through it and give my all-star reserves at some point, which I will do. I think he's in, and I like him at that sort of a salary. Olynyk, Taj Gibson, Punch Bob, Myers Leonard. Hard to get too excited about any of those blokes. Next up, the Phoenix Suns, the Oklahoma City Thunder. DeAndre Ayton back for 1 game, and he is out with an ankle sprain. That is unfortunate for him, but that means that Frank the Tank Kaminsky, it means that Aaron Baines, they get boosts in their value. We don't know if Devin Booker's going to play. If he is out, then we get lots of Kelly Oubre, we get Ravishing Rick Rubio, we get McCall Bridges, all jumping up into that area. Tyler Johnson's back after missing a couple of games. He's trash, but if Booker is out, there could be some minutes coming for Meth Curry. Cam Johnson also in the injury report is questionable. That's really concerning, as I mentioned earlier, because he did have those hip problems coming into the draft, leading to some teams to completely eliminate him off their draft board. Phoenix ignored that and picked him at pick 11. At point guard, Chris Paul is at 7,600 because he is really good. And he is giving us that value most nights. I love it here. Gilgeous Alexander, 6,900.
Giggity.
So many 6,900s on the slate. Shea really bounced back last game. I'm not super keen on using him here, though. Well, Dennis Schroeder, just shooting unbelievably. Usage through the roof as well. At some point, it's going to drop off. 6,200 feels like it's a bit too high, so I think I'd fade him. While Ravishing Rick, if Booker is out, Rubio at 7,300. Let's hit the music, actually. Because it is that hot here that my mouth is drying out when I'm talking, because it is, if you didn't know, it's like yesterday we had the hottest day ever recorded in Australia, and today's hotter. It is 44 degrees here today. It's 111 Fahrenheit, and some places, I know plenty of listeners who live out in rural South Australia for some reason, it was 50 degrees Celsius yesterday. That is middle of the Saudi Arabian desert type temperature. It is an insane hot day here, and I am absolutely baking under these studio lights that I'm recording under. It is an absolute insane day here at the moment, and yeah, so I'm if I have a heat-induced confusion, that is the reason. Where the hell was I? Booker, 8,400, hand injury, shot might not fall. Not keen on using him here in this one. If he is out, you get guys like Javon Carter or Ty Jerome. They can all push up, but it's more Bridges the guy that we want to look at in that scenario. As for McCall, he's at 4,900. Shit the bed last time, 15 points in 26 minutes, but he can do better than that, especially with Ayton out. They might need to go to him a little bit more. Terry Ferguson, cool. At small forward, Oubre's at 6,700. I like it, and I love it if Booker is out. Dario Saric at 53. He gets a reprieve. He had 18 points in 24 minutes last game. Ayton out helps him. Not because he's going to play exclusively center, because Frank Kaminsky then goes and plays exclusively centers. That means more minutes, especially if Cam Johnson is out. They have to go heavily into Saric, and that 5,300, that would make him a really good option. For your big blokes, Noel's at 4,000, not keen. Bainesy, 42. Baines versus Steven Adams, the Battle of New Zealand. Yes, Aaron Baines was born in New Zealand, then he moved to Australia because he knew it was a better country. So he came across there, but they are going up against each other. Steve Adams at 6,100, I actually like quite a bit, and I love that Steven Adams quote from yesterday that the first time that yesterday was like the first time he'd worn a suit in 7 years. And I wear shorts literally every day of the year. I don't wear shoes. I wear sandals or thongs / flip-flops. I wear thongs as well. That's just a comfort thing. So I completely feel Steve. Winter, shorts all the time, open toe. I hate wearing closed-toe shoes. Absolutely. Hassan Whiteside, I apologize, but closed-toe shoes. The world. Way too many tangents here. I apologize. Frank Kaminsky, 5,700. Absolutely love him with 8-0 out. He's putting up big numbers. Now, he can't hit a layup to save himself, but he's just going to get force-fed shots. He's averaging 35 a night anyway. So at that price, I think you got to look at Frank as a pretty good option to play in this one, or to put up good numbers in this one with Ayton out again, which is just a real bummer. The Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. No spread out for this one at this point, unfortunately, because Karl Anthony Towns is not playing. Now, he looked pretty dire the other day. They were talking about how bad he was moving around, but now the report is that he's actually moving around pretty okay. So there is a chance that he plays. If he is out, then Gorgie Jeng steps up into that role. He becomes an option. Andy Wiggins gets a step up. We had Jarrett Culver miss last game. So their whole rotation last game was really all over the shop. The Blue Arrow, Jamal Murray's at 6,600. He dropped a real bomb last time, 42 in that game. I think the matchup really does suit Muzz here in this one, and I think he can exceed that 66 point mark, or $6,600 price point. Farton Will Barton, he was bad. He still had 29 points. So that's the sign of a guy that can put up some big numbers, and the matchup's great for Barto here. So I think at 65, he is a really, really strong option. Culver's at 36. Before his illness, he was averaging 9 points over the last 3 games, so safe to say I'm not keen there. Big Jeff Teague.
My name is Jeff.
Your name is Jeff. He's at 6,100. He shot about 2%, I believe, in the last game. Prior to that, he'd been on a roll. I think at 6,100, if we do hear that Cole was out, I'm not far off on Teague. I think there's some value there, and if Towns is out, it does help because it does boost his usage there. Monty Morris, Shabazz Napier, Malik Beasley, no thanks. Andy Wiggins is at 8,000. I actually like the floor value for Wiggo, and I think he can go through it if Towns is out. Gaz Harris at 46.
Nice, Gary!
Yeah, maybe. Look, he's been low 20s, which is fine, but there's no upside in it, and I'm not even sure that it's safe as a floor option, so it's not really doing it for me. Joshie Okogie's at 42. Not interested in him. For your small forwards, Mick Porter and Keita Bates-Diop, no thanks on those guys. And then Bob Covington's at 58. Now, he was benched last game for a violation or for being late to a team meeting. I imagine he's back starting, but, coming off the bench didn't hurt him. 36 points in 30 minutes, 5,800. Strong value if Towns is out, because that might actually force him to take some more shots. Then on to the big man, Paulie Millsap, 4,600. Really only a tournament guy, but if they get 28 minutes out of him, he'll beat that number. But we just don't know how they're going to manage that at this point. Big Chungus is at 9,400. Nikola Jokic, I like that quite a bit. While Towns at 10,800, I wouldn't want to use that with the uncertainty with his knee. He does have a really good record against Chungus, averaging 61 the last 3 times out against Denver. Jez Grant's at 43. No thank you. Mace Plumlee, Gorgie Jeng would only be interesting if Towns is out. He had 25 in 24 minutes last game. Give him 30 minutes, he'll get 28, I imagine, which gives him value at a $4,900 price tag. The next game for us to look at here on this big slate, the Orlando Magic and the Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers are 3.5 point favourites. The total is 216. John Isaac not on the injury report after complaining of hamstring cramps last game, so that's good news. Well, it's me, Mario Hazonia.
It's me, Mario.
He's probable to play as well. At point guard, Christian James McCollum, 6,800. He's in the middle of that hot streak. Knowing when to pull off is important.
Giggity.
But I think at this point we can consider him an option. The reason I would be a little more cautious with him today, or in this game, depending on when you're listening, is the Orlando Magic defense, which is obviously pretty strong at limiting opponents. Markelle Fultz is at 4,900. With how DJ Augustin's playing, it's a little bit harder to get excited, but his minutes have still been fine. It's just the usage has dipped down somewhat. But at 4,900, I think he's got some GPP value. Simon's at 36, no thank you. Lillard's at 88, love Lillo at that price. He should be a 50-point-ish type of a guy. While DJ Augustin at 47 on an absolute roll. Can it continue? I have significant doubts, but he's taking shots away from Terry Ross. The minutes are up. I still don't think it's the right one to go for, though. Bazemore's at 48. That's a strong no from me. And then on to Fournier at 62, who is struggling with the return of Vucevic. At small forward, Malo's at 5,900. Now, Malo is giving us numbers every night. He scores, he shoots badly, he gets defense. He's doing lots of weird stuff. And at 59, I find it really hard to steer clear of Malo at that sort of a salary. Aaron Gordon, I can very easily steer clear of him at 6,300. Maybe he has a good game, but the odds would tell me that he doesn't because he's not that good. And that's just the way things are gone. While Johnny Isaac's at 65, his numbers have also decreased a bit. I think we can fade off on that one. For your big men, Nikola Vucevic, 8,100, 48 average against the Blazers the last 3 times. Centers have a good time of it against Hassan Whiteside, 8,100. I am in on Vuce here. I am also in on Hassan Whiteside, who is averaging 47 points over his last 5 games. And at 8,400, he hasn't been
The world.
In fact, don't tell anyone, but he's actually been okay. He still has some mind-numbing performances, but he's been pretty good lately. And again, I can shit on him as much, half of it's for jokes, but I can shit on him plenty of times, but he's been good. And that's just the reality of how things have been going. Mo Bamba's at 3,500. I don't really think you need to get too excited about using him with Vooch back in action. The last game of the night before I pass out is the New Orleans Pelicans and the Golden State Warriors. The Pels are 1 point favourite. They broke their losing streak last game. The total is 225. The triangle, Eric Pascal, is probable with that hip issue that has been limiting him. He came off the bench last game. I imagine he'll do the same, and the minutes will be down once more. Draymond's at 6,500. It is an enticing price, but I'm not ready to go in there. I much prefer D'Angelo Russell at 8,300, who had 46 last game. 40-point performance here should be the expectation. Alec Burks at 54. Really like what Burks is doing. 30 a night, pretty much consistently, so I like Burks quite a bit here. Lonzo's at 53. He's giving us 26 a night despite bad shooting nights and low minutes. I'm not massively into him here, but the numbers have still been all right at that salary anyway. Well, Drew's at 8,600. At some point, Holiday shot's going to have to go in. I don't know when that is, but at some point it is. And when it does, he'll be a 55-point type of player. That makes him a tournament guy to me. At shooting guard, Josh the Hitman Hart's at 55. I don't really see the appeal there. Damo Lee's at 4,000. I do see the appeal there, especially if we hear that he's going to start. I believe that he will start over the triangle and play high 20s in minutes. Glenn Robinson, the little dog, not too interested there. JJ Redick at 54, tournaments only for him. And then on to small forwards. Brandon Ingram, 8,700. This guy is killing it at the moment. No matter what's happening, he's putting up numbers. I'm really into him in this sort of a matchup as well. Kenny Williams is the opposite of me getting excited. Eric Pascal, no thank you. And then on to the big blokes. Derek Favors at 51. Allegedly, his minutes restriction is going to be eased off a little bit here. I'm not going to get involved with him for a tournament. For a cash game. For a tournament, I imagine that no one will have him in a lineup, so maybe we get some benefit there, and then it's only a real dart throw. Cauley Stein, no thank you. While Jackson Hayes at 47, pretty limited last game, and in fact had Jaleel Okafor come in and take some of his minutes. And when Jaleel Okafor's taking your minutes, it's not good. Speaking of not good, Kevon Looney out of the rotation last game. Marquise Chris and the Wizard Omari Spellman getting those minutes. I just don't think there's any reliability in any of those guys for this situation. Let's go over to the old FanDuel, have a look at some value plays. It's dominated by Raptors again. Boucher, Hollis Jefferson, Terrence Davis, Van Vliet, Ibaka. We also like Drummond and Langston Galloway and Markieff Morris with the injuries in Detroit. The Jedi Ojananobi, the Shark Bruce Brown, Vooch and Derrick Rose, Isaiah Thomas, Markelle Fultz, Bags, Marvin Bagley that is. Enes Kanter comes in okay on FanDuel at sub 4,000. Embiid and Kaminsky and Derek Jones. Davis Bertans and Alec Burks. Also some pretty good FanDuel options. I'm off to have an icy poll. I don't know what you guys call it over in America. An ice pop, I don't know, something. A frozen iced confectionery to cool myself down. Subscribe to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. Tell your friends. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. CJ Miles.